Good evening. I'd like to call to order the City Council meeting of Monday, July 15, 2019. Please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Roll call, please.
Okay. Albertson?
Here.
Bueller? Here. Hoyer? Here. Holeen?
Allowed to say here?
Yep, you're here. Lallam?
Here.
Manti? Here. Radensky?
Here.
Roby?
Here.
Vilhauer?
Here.
Y.
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you. The first item on the agenda is the swearing in of our new councilman for Ward A, Reed Holeen. So Reed, if you'll please come forward. You can stand right there. Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Reed Holeen,
I, Reed Holeen,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
or affirm
or affirm
that I will support the Constitution
that I will support the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution
and the Constitution
of the State of South Dakota,
of the State of South Dakota,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties
of Alderman for the City of Watertown,
of Alderman for the City of Watertown,
Cottington County,
Cottington County,
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Now we have a full house. There's one member reporting via telephone, Councilman Michael Hoyer, who's away from town right now, and he will be weighing in on everything that goes on. So the first item on the agenda is approval of the consent agenda. We have a motion to approve by Councilwoman Manti and a second by Councilman Holeen. Is there any discussion? All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Item 3 is public comment, and that is the time set aside for anyone who's here to talk about something not on the agenda to just come and say their piece. Is anyone here? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 4, approval of the agenda.
I move the approval agenda.
We have a motion by Vilhauer and a second by Roby. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Item 5 is presentation of awards to past committee and council members. And I'm going to steal the microphone away from Councilman Hoyer. And I would like to ask the following people to step forward if they're in the audience. Val Nesham, Les McElhaney, Dale Howlett, and Heidi Stoik. Thank you for coming forward. I don't see Dale or Les, so I'll just talk to you. I want to thank you sincerely for your service on the boards. And Val was on the Mayor's Committee for People with Disabilities, and Heidi was on the Park and Recreation Board. And your service is greatly appreciated, and so I have certificates for both of you. Thank you. Wait just a minute. Let's get a picture. I think the press probably wants a picture, right? If you'll hold up your certificates. Thank you. Thank you for your service. Next, I'd like Jackie Baxter to come up. We don't give plaques to everyone, but when someone has served 27 years on a board faithfully, I think that deserves a plaque. And Jackie's one of those people. And Jackie served on the library board. And come on up here, Jackie. Here's a certificate, and I have a plaque, so hang on for that. Jackie came at a time before we had electronic cards, so she's seen a lot of change serving on the library board. E-books, not a thing when you started.
Not a thing.
No.
Not a computer either. We didn't have a computer either.
Would you like to tell us about the first computers that we got?
Well, that was Tom Brockhoff and Bill Gates who came and presented us with 10 computers, and in person. So people were invited to come. Not many did, some did. But we had the privilege of meeting those two dignified people from our state of from South Dakota, and from Bill Gates is pretty international.
Right, and a wonderful gift of computers to our library when that was a new thing.
And that was the beginning of our lab. Those 10 computers were the beginning of our computer lab.
So Jackie saw lots and lots of change. She also guided us through the reconstruction of our library, and she's probably been there for all of the hirings of all the people that are there right now. And so I'm going to get the plaque, and then we'll give her a big round of applause.
Thank you. May I say one more thing? I would like to thank the City Council and the mayors for all the support that they have given to our wonderful library. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jackie. Let's get a picture. You gotta hold your plaque up. Thank you very much. And now I would like to invite our former councilman, Mike Danforth and John Solom, to come up. And we also have a plaque for these gentlemen and for Brad Thorson. And I don't see Brad in the audience tonight, so he'll get his plaque at a later time. But we need to really thank these gentlemen for all the work that they did. Mike was on the city council for 8 years, and John for 12. So you guys have both seen quite a bit in your years. Would you like to say anything?
Just want to thank everybody. It's been a good time working with all these council members, and met a lot of people and great city staff. And the rest of the time Mike's going to need, so I'll yield him all my time.
Mike, would you like to comment?
Well, I'd like to sing a song actually, but I won't. No, I think the biggest thing is anybody, for the most part, that steps into this, you haven't done it in the past, and it's a great way to serve your community. It's you get involved with so many things, and you meet so many people over good situations and bad situations. And being able to be a part of it and being able to help people has been very rewarding for me. And I thank the people of Watertown. So,
thank you, and lots of years of service, many, many nights, long hours spent in this room, and we can't thank you enough for your service. I have a certificate and a plaque for each of you. Thank you. Let's get a picture.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll give the microphone back to Mike Hoyer. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is election of officers. And we have kind of a special situation with Michael Hoyer participating remotely. Would any of the council members object to Michael texting his vote to me? I will write it down on the piece of paper, and Kristen will collect it and work it out that way. Anybody? Everybody okay with that? Okay. Then we'll go ahead with that, and the first position is the council president. And Kristen, do you want to handle how this works?
Well, the first thing is just to accept nominations for the council president, and then once we have all the nominations received, I've handed out the slips of paper for voting. I'll have everybody put down after the nominations are made who your vote is for. I'll collect them, we'll tally them, and then that's how we'll proceed then to the vice president as well.
Okay, are there nominations for president? Councilman Roby?
I'll nominate Glenn Vilhauer.
Glenn Vilhauer's been nominated. Are there any other nominations? I don't think I do. Okay. Okay. We have a second from Councilman Lallam. Motion by Councilman Roby for Councilman Vilhauer as president, and he appears to be unopposed. So, last chance. Any other nominations? Congratulations, Councilman Vilhauer. President. Are there nominations for vice president?
I'd like to nominate Adam Lallam.
Councilman Y has a nomination for Adam Lallam. Councilman Albertson.
I would like to nominate Bruce Bueller.
Councilman Albertson has a nomination for Bruce Bueller. Are there any others? I guess I need seconds. Is there a second for? Councilwoman Manty has second both nominations. I don't see any problem with that. Okay, put down your vote and fold up your piece of paper, and Kristen will collect it.
Okay, with that, it is Adam Lallam.
Congratulations, Councilman Lallam. next week we'll have a different seating arrangement. Item number 7 is application for a new retail on-off sale malt beverage and South Dakota farm wine license to the Painted Fox LLC, doing business as the Painted Fox LLC at 208 East Camp Avenue, Suite 1, and based upon Board of Adjustment approval, which should be occurring on July 18th, 2019, which is next Thursday. So it will be tentative until that approval happens. We have a motion from Councilwoman Manti and a second from Councilman Vilhauer. Is there any discussion? Okay, I will go ahead and open the public hearing and ask if anyone has anything. Did you want to say something, Councilman Vilhauer?
Why is this appearing before the Board of Adjustment?
The Board of Adjustment approves the location as being appropriate for alcohol to be served.
Okay.
And that's it. The council gives the final say on oh.
I'll be recusing myself from this item. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Roby. Councilman Y, did you have something?
Is there anyone here from the Painted Fox?
Yes, would you like to come forward? It's not required, but if you'd like to come forward, and you're certainly welcome to.
And my question is real simple. You can please come up here. Just maybe explain what exactly the Painted Fox is for those who don't know.
Either one. Thank you for coming forward. And just state your name for the record.
Ashley Fox. Oh. Ashley Fox.
Thank you.
It's a paint your own pottery store. Also, we'll be doing clay hand building, glass fusing, canvas painting, and wood sign painting.
So groups or classes and individual?
Mostly the wine and beer will be served in the evening during class time. So it won't be readily available to anybody that just wants to come in and drink. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Councilman Vilhauer?
If you need a character reference, I'll vouch for it.
Thank you. I know.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
I just wanted to say that I think this is such a unique business for the area and for downtown that
Thank
I'm
you.
really pleased to see it come. And we were all just talking about here how many kids and grandkids we could drag into your place.
I hope so. Right. Well, thank you.
Yes, thank you. Is there anyone else here to speak about this public hearing? About this item? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Any further discussion, council? Seeing none, I'll look for action. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed
Aye.
signify by saying nay. Motion carries. And just to tell the audience, we had a little bit of a class in Robert's Rules of Order, and we're trying to follow it. So if things are a little clunky, it's because we're not really used to doing things in accordance with that, but we're going to try really hard. So the next item on the agenda is number 8, approval of ordinance number 19-08, a zoning text amendment to Title 21 of the revised ordinances of the City of Watertown, updating the definitions of recreation facility and recreational use, either as permitted or conditional uses throughout the zoning districts in Title 21.
Madam Mayor, make a motion to approve.
We have a motion by Lallam and a second by Bueller. And I would like Heath to tell us about this.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is the second reading of this ordinance, and it essentially boils down to some housekeeping items that we needed to clean up in Chapter 21, the zoning ordinance of the Watertown City Code. And with that, our urban planner, Brandy Hanton, is with me this evening, and she kind of spearheaded the structure of how we address some of these issues related to how recreational use is defined and utilized throughout this section of the code. And I'd like to defer to her to just talk us through that briefly.
Thank you, Heath. So this is just an ordinance amendment to Title 21. We're just cleaning up the definition. Before, it wasn't really clear between if it was private or public. So now we've used recreational use is going to be for public facilities like playgrounds and parks. And then recreation facility is going to be the commercial or the private industries. And everything is distributed throughout Title 21 the same. The only thing that changed was we took the definition out of the definition for a commercial recreational facility. And then so we put that in just the I-1 district, and so that is allowed by conditional use, and the I-1 is the light industrial, and that's where we only restrict it to the public 14 years of age and older.
All right, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and open up the public hearing and invite anyone of the public who's here to speak about this item to come forward. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and ask the council if they have any discussion. Councilman Lallam?
I have one quick comment.
Oh, sure. Go ahead, Michael Hoyer.
So looking at it, Chapter 21.22, under R4, Manufactured Homes Residential District, under Permitted Uses, item number 6, it still says park or playground. I noticed that in the other sections we changed that to recreational use for the others. Are we going to be doing the same there for that section, or did we just maybe miss it?
Let me look into it.
We're zooming.
Maybe it's up here. Okay. Okay, under conditional use? Permitted use.
It's in permitted uses. I just noticed that in the other areas we struck that and went ahead and changed it to recreational use. I was just confirming that with R4, since it wasn't struck there, are we planning on changing that there as well?
Right, good catch. Yeah, that was just an oversight, so we'll change that to recreational use.
All right. Good job, Councilman Hoyer.
Less that we'll have to clean up later.
All right, any other comments or questions? Councilman Vilhauer?
Brandy, I know as you went through this process, and first of all, I really appreciate what you and your staff went through in getting this guy followed the Planning Commission process, and it took a while to get to this stage, but so I thank you for that. And I know throughout that process, our fire marshal was involved in the discussion as well, and he has blessed this as well. Is that a fair statement?
Yep, and we've been passing ordinance amendments dealing with recreational use and trying to get it cleaned up, and so we did feel that this was an appropriate amendment to be done with it, and especially now that we have the R4 mistake caught, then we don't have to come back again.
Oh, bonus. All right, any other comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll look for council action. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Item 9 is approval of ordinance number 19-07 to amend the district zoning map of the city of Watertown, South Dakota for property generally located northwest of the sailboat landing on Lake Compesca and legally described as lots 19 through 20, block 2 of Lake Ridge Addition from R1 Single Family Residential District to C3 Highway Commercial District, subject to all planning requirements.
Madam Mayor, I make the motion to approve as presented.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilman Lallam and a second by Councilman Holeen. And I would like Heath to tell us about this one.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is a zoning map amendment request by the property owner, Mr. Roy Walsh. He is petitioning to rezone his property that's currently zoned R1 Single Family Residential to a C3 Highway Commercial District. Some of the logic behind that, it does meet the terms of a C3 zoning district. It is located, adjacent to Highway 20. The Plan Commission did recommend approval at their June 20th, 2019 meeting. I believe it was on a split vote of 5-1, if I remember correctly, to approve the rezone. The property does meet the minimum zoning district size requirements. The lot configuration would need to be addressed at the time of approval to meet the lot size requirements for that district. And the access and things of that nature would be noted on the plat as well. And we'd be glad to help discuss any further questions you might have.
Thank you. I would like to open up the public hearing and see if anyone is here to speak about this. And Brandy, I'll start with you. Did you want to add anything?
No, I think Heath got it
Okay.
pretty summed up.
If there's anyone here that would like to speak about this issue, please come forward and state your name for the record. Seeing none, I will close the public hearing and go for council discussion. Are there any questions or comments? Councilman Lallam?
If I'm not correct, was that a few weeks ago we did the property directly to the east of that, changed that to same zoning, correct, is what they petitioned?
That is correct.
Okay. And that, with those two being there, they'd be able to put their approach somewhere in between the two?
Yes, Councilman Lallam, Madam Mayor, the determination from the DOT would be finalized likely at the time of development, but they have verbally indicated to city staff that they would allow at least one access 660 feet west of the public street intersection with Highway 20, which would land roughly at the property line between the previously rezoned property and this one.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Are there any other comments? Okay, Councilman Vilhauer?
I'll make the same comment that I made when we acted on the other parcel here a few weeks ago. I'm in favor of this. I think it's if there is going to be an area around the lake that lends itself to commercial development, it's an ideal spot, being buffered on two sides by a highway and a road. So I'm in favor of that, but I am concerned, and I hope that before we start doing this piecemeal more often around the lake, that we do get a master plan in place that does prevent us picking or cherry picking different areas around the lake until all of a sudden we've got a problem that we weren't intended, that we weren't looking to have. So having said that, I do support this.
Thank you. Councilman Albertson?
Same thing from a month ago for me, that it's right next to a residential R1 district. And then secondly, we don't have any idea at all what's going to happen to that area, because they're not saying, at least I haven't heard anything on this one either, as to what's being planned. I think we can all just imagine having some things right by your house, and there's some very, very nice property out there and some quiet areas, and there are a lot of things I could think of that would be great out there, but a C3, it just opens too many doors for me, and so I'm still opposed to allowing a C3 in around beautiful Lake Watertown, Lake Kempesca here.
Thank you. Councilman Bueller?
My position hasn't changed from the first property. I tend to go along with Dan's comments. From a planning standpoint, it's not a good transition, number one. I mean, I'm not saying it's not it would be nice to have certain applications, but there are a number of applications that probably wouldn't be very desirable. And we got to look a long time down the road. We got to look down into the future to see what could go there and the specified uses for that property. And I don't think there are too many specified uses that would not lend themselves well to the adjacent property owners. And for that reason, from a planning standpoint, I would say that this is not a good idea.
Thank you. Councilwoman Manty?
I think I'm going to echo something that Adam mentioned a month ago or whenever we did this, is that whoever puts something on here is not going to want it, A, to fail, or B, to make all of his neighbors extremely angry, because that's not productive for anybody. I just wanted to know from Brandy or Heath, based on the construction setbacks and all of the requirements for that, the buildable space goes down considerably, doesn't it? So when we're looking at this property, we're not looking at this property at the size it is, so what can be built on it is going to be constrained by the setbacks. Is that correct? And so how much actual buildable land is there on that stretch of the two?
And with this one, I couldn't specifically tell you the square footage, but it does have double frontage with it having Highway 20 and then North Lake Drive. So it does have 40 feet of setback from the front yard and then 20 feet on the side yard.
So now you're cutting that quite small. So I mean, I think some of the concern about larger in manufacturing or industrial type things is reduced in my mind just by the available land buildability. Buildability, is that the right word? Okay, so anyway, that was the point I wanted to make, so that we can make sure that, you know, I guess Adam can say what he wanted to say.
Thank you. Councilman Lolo, are you?
I thought he wanted to say something.
Yeah.
So that lot's 160 by 191.36, so you'd have to take, is it got double frontage then?
Yep.
Highway and the road?
Yep.
So you'd take 80 feet off that way and then 40 feet off the other, so it'd be 80 by 150 is what the size that they'd be able to build on, so. It's not it's 10,000 square feet roughly, give or take, and then you'd have to put parking and stuff like that, so the actual structure they'd be able to put up would be significantly smaller than that.
And parking can be within the setbacks,
Right.
but just, the structure itself
Yeah.
would be limited.
Yeah.
Councilman Bueller?
I just one other thing I'd like to add is that, we do have to, there should be concern for the landowners that bought property that are in the R1 that would be across the street from this. I just want to make that clear.
Thank you. Councilman Holing?
Thank you, Mayor. And I'm not really sure if you would be the correct person to answer this question. I think it would probably be more for the landowner, because we don't know what use this land is going to go for or what's going to happen. So what would be the harm if this were to fail tonight and landowner and other people have to come back and explain it a little bit more so that we have some idea of what might be going there? What would be the harm in just waiting a little bit? Thank you.
Right, and so in the district, there's the permitted uses and then the conditional uses, and the conditional uses are supposed to be a little more obtrusive so that they would have to come to the Board of Adjustment, and then at that time, conditions could be placed to, make it mesh with the neighborhood better, and to, I guess, take care of any of the adjacent properties' concerns with like lighting, what else were some other ones?
Garbage.
Noise, yeah. Yep, more traffic.
Access.
So then at that time, they could look at that, but I guess whatever you guys think as far as.
And if I could tag on to Brandy's explanation there, and Councilman, to step back another layer of the rezoning process, the one thing that we always advise both the Planning Commission and the Council to do is to look at these rezones on a merit basis per the zoning district. And even if the applicant were to, example, come in and describe to us what their intended uses are on that lot, the action that would be taken would be holistic to the zoning ordinance as it reads today. And all these allowable uses on there could change that very next day as far as the applicant's intentions go. Because he or she would have the legal right to perform any one of these uses upon approval of this rezone. And so while the information is helpful, and it does help put some minds at ease on what's forthcoming on that property, we always heed caution to not necessarily base the decision of the rezone on that alone, because it can change, and it can't change quickly for that matter, because they do have the legal right to use the land under any of the permitted uses under that zoning district. I hope does that help better explain the circumstance?
Thank you for explaining that, Councilman Bueller.
Just one other consideration when we do these kinds of things is light spillage issues, noise issues that can result from some of the different specified applications for this type of property. I mean, we've run into in my past planning days, even auto headlights, so at the very least, if this does pass, I think there needs to be screening options, that we need to look at too for that. So just another consideration.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions?
Just a quick comment. I'll toss out, since it's under conditional uses, the only way that manufacturing under C3, it looks like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it looks like the only way you'd get manufacturing in those lots is if it actually got passed in a conditional use. Otherwise, permitted is just service stations, retail, service, motels, motor vehicle sales. It looks like a bunch of sales, essentially. I mean, there's no manufacturing under the actual permitted uses.
That's correct. Thank you, Councilman Hoyer. Anyone else? All right, I'm going to ask for action. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed signify by saying nay.
Nay.
Roll call vote, please.
Okay. Albertson.
Nay.
Bueller. Hoyer.
Aye.
Pauline. Lalum.
Yes.
Manti. Rademski.
Nay.
Roby.
Aye.
Bill Howard.
Aye.
Why?
Yes.
6-4, motion carries.
Thank you. Item number 10 is approval of airport ground lease with LATI.
I'll move the adoption of the lease.
Thank you. So we have a motion by Councilman Vilhauer and a second from Councilman Holing. And I see the airport manager, Todd Cyrus, here. So would you please explain this to us?
Yeah, so this is a private hangar that's being purchased by Lake Area Technical Institute to expand their business. They're buying a few more aircraft, getting ready for their flight program, and they need some more space. So PCR Aviation owns this hangar, and this would be the ground lease if this approves tonight. Their sale is August 1st, I believe, is their tentative date to close on this.
All right, thank you. I'm going to open the public hearing. Is there anyone here who would like to speak about this item? If so, please come forward. See no one, I will close the public hearing and see if the council has any questions or comments. Councilman Lalum.
Is this very similar to all the other leases as far as amounts and things that we just approved one a couple months ago for Kozeski's? Is that correct?
Yes, this is a standard lease, yep.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor,
Yes.
just in response to that question, I would just add that it was 2016 that the airport board approved the fees.
Yep.
2016, they approved a kind of a comprehensive fee schedule for the airport. And at that time, I believe it was set at 15 cents per square foot for these ground leases. But the leases, also at that time, they approved a clause in the leases that basically calls for an inflationary factor of 2% per year. So to keep up with that, of course, now it's 4 years later. And so this lease, the initial per square foot per year amount is 16 cents per square foot per year.
Thank you. Did this go through the airport board?
Yes.
So it received their recommendation?
Yes, it did, sorry.
All right, no, that's all right. Any other comments or questions from council? All right, I'll look for action. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Item number 11 is approval of airport marketing agreement with the ArcStar Group.
I make a motion that we approve the resolution.
Have a motion by Councilwoman Manti and a second by Councilman Holing. And Todd's still here, so I'll ask the airport manager, Todd Cyrus, to explain this.
Yeah, so ArcStar came and did a presentation for the older council members, I guess. The new ones hadn't seen the presentation yet. But this is a marketing firm that we've used for the past few months since we started the United Airlines service at the airport. Some of the things they've done is they've done a digital Facebook campaign. We had just got the results for that this last week. Over 400,000 impressions. I believe they had 1.5 million impressions were produced through the campaign, similar size campaigns in other cities. So we were right there on target, I should say. If we have ran the same amount of campaign for distance, that we would have had the same amount of impressions that they ran in another city. Some other things they did an $89 fare they negotiated with United Airlines. That fare ran for about 6 weeks, and you could book all the way through November, through Thanksgiving, at $89 to Denver. We're also looking to do that with the startup of Chicago service, if indeed you guys approve this tonight. This lease, or this agreement, I'm sorry, I would like to go just to the end of the year and then reevaluate with the airport board's approval. This has been through the airport board, and that's what they recommended, was to go to the end of the year, get the Chicago service kicked off, just like we did Denver with this company, and then reassess the situation.
So is there money in the budget, in your airport board budget for this?
There is not. This would be a supplement to my marketing budget for the rest of this year.
So is your marketing budget completely dry right now?
No, we have it allocated, though, for the rest of the year with TV and radio.
So you're not suggesting switching any of that around? Do you have contracts that call for that?
Correct. We do every year. They're not contracts. We just we allocate the money in chunks of funding between the airport board and the Chamber of Commerce and the CVB. We all work together as our marketing committee that was set up a few years ago.
Okay, so you do have marketing money.
Correct.
And it's
I have
not-
$24,000 a year.
You have it earmarked, but there's no contract.
Correct.
And you could use that money, but you're suggesting to leave that where it is?
Correct.
And that's marketing different things, or?
Marketing correct. This is essentially what this is we're using his contacts, essentially. He has been in the industry for over 40 years. He can set up these $89 fares with United that I don't have the contacts to do. He can run the marketing campaign for Facebook, which I can't do. I've tried in the past, and I just can't keep up with it at the airport. He can. They've shown very positive numbers coming off of their campaigns. They've done a leakage study for us that we can keep updated. That is one of the nice things that they can show us where our leakage is and how to fix it, essentially.
So there's 6 months at $3,500 a month, and then you'll reevaluate. So at this point, we'd be looking at $21,000
supplement. Correct.
Go ahead, Councilman.
Thank you. And you want to mention too, Todd, that there are a la carte expenses that go along with that. That's just basic retainer stuff. So if we ask them to do certain things, certain leakage studies, for example, that's additional fees that are added to that, if I'm not mistaken. You know, and the other thing, you might want to, just for the audience's sake, and maybe for some of the new folks, explain what we're talking about with that leakage issue, what that really means. And then one other thing we probably need to consider is the employments that we've got now. You know, where we're at capacity-wise, and you know, whether the timing is right for us to do this. You know, if we're going to market to planes that we are filling seats in, you know, that might be an issue. Obviously, if we can get more planes, more routes, that's great. But those are considerations, too, when you look at this. So.
Yeah, so how I looked at this was starting the Chicago service is, I think it's key to kick off with a special, like we did the Denver service with the $89 fare, run that for a few months. The planes are getting full. We're running at almost 100% capacity between Pier and Watertown in the morning flights, and then the afternoon flight is about 90% capacity. So we are getting full, which is good. That will give SkyWest ammunition to add flights if they deem necessary. So I think with this, with ArcStar, for the next few months, we'll kick off a great campaign for Chicago. Remember, we get all those seats. So this is direct to Chicago. We don't have to split with Pier anymore. The a la carte, yes, there are some additional fees in the contract, such as the leakage study. It's $500 for another leakage study. I did ask another company to provide the same services, and it was about $15,000 for that study.
Wow.
So we're getting a great bang for our buck here. I did talk to Pier, and they are actually looking to add some of the services back. I just talked to Mike Isaacs from Pier today, and I know they went away from this for a little while. They actually had them the first couple of months as well. They weren't going to up their contract. but now he's talking about re-upping certain portions of this contract again. So
Do we have a way to measure the success of this marketing campaign?
we will, yes.
And what will that be?
There will be monthly reports that Gary with ArcStar will send us, and also weekly updates, phone call updates, whether it be with the airport board or just myself and an airport board member.
Do you know what they're measuring? Is it hits on a website or obviously seats being filled, but it sounds like we're already filling seats.
Correct. KPIs and, do you remember, Reed, what else he was going to measure? I'm sorry.
KPIs is all.
Yeah, KPIs was the big one.
What's a KPI?
Go ahead, Bruce.
Help me out here. I'm trying to remember what that acronym is.
I was hoping you knew.
Performance indicator.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. Industry
Thanks,
lingo.
Todd.
Yeah, I was drawing a blank, sorry.
Yep. All right. Are there questions? Councilman Vilhar?
Was the airport board unanimous in their or their decision, Todd?
Yes, they were, through the end of this year.
Sure.
And the contract is month, you can cancel at any time.
Any
at the end
30
of
days. So it's a contract that we can get out of in 30 days, essentially. It's a month-to-month contract, yes.
Councilman Roby?
I remember the presentation. I thought it was really interesting in the amount of data and the type of data they could gather for us. If I recall, what was really interesting about that is a lot of it's data that the airline's not looking at. So they can take this data that supports our case, bring it to the airline, say, you need to get cheaper fares to the East Coast or whatever it might be. The other thing is, I know the numbers are good, but there's no guarantee we'll hit the 10,000 employment this year. With the airport board's full endorsement, your endorsement, what I think that program can do with our new flights to Chicago, I think this is a good program.
Yes, and I know I've seen their presentation too. They measure things that we wouldn't be able to do this on our own without their assistance. So
There is software out there that we can measure, but it takes staff, purchase the software, they pay people big money in the airline to do this. He can do it weekly. The one thing Don was talking about that I didn't touch on was fare structures. So they look at all kinds of markets across the United States and worldwide for that matter, and they compare them to Sioux Falls, Fargo, Aberdeen, Minneapolis even. And they want to keep us competitive. And so Gary can find those fares that are higher and price us out of the market, and then combat for us with United to lower those fares.
yes, thank you. Councilman Bueller?
I think they bring a lot to the table with all the connections that they have. I believe that the person that did the presentation was the vice president of marketing for American.
Correct.
A tremendous amount of connections that we could take advantage of, I think.
Councilman Y?
Todd, the employments, that counts to go either to Denver or to Chicago, right? So
yes,
just to be clear on that. Okay.
Yep.
And then I have another question. Where will this money come from, Kristen?
I was just going to jump in. So when we do talk about supplementing the airport's budget, we do need to be clear that the airport will not have enough cash to support their own budget. So when we talk about that, the location that this would come from would be a transfer from the general fund through a budget supplement. So basically we will be increasing the general fund's budget to give it to the airport fund. So that will come back probably before you, within the next couple of months. We have a few other items too that potentially will be coming forward, and if not, it could be a supplement at the end of the year. So.
Okay, thank you. Other comments?
I've got
or
a
questions?
comment for
Okay.
Todd.
Councilman Hoyer?
So, Todd, I'm looking at the presentation from ArcStar and actually going through it. So just to remind folks, impressions are when you basically view an ad, and then you look at the actual click-through rate, which is your engagement. So looking at that, we do have a good click-through rate. 2.08% isn't bad. So, if you look at the Hayes Round 1 campaign impressions, it's 182,507 people saw the ad in some form. That's I'm looking at Facebook, by the way. So that's that popping up in their feed. It can be in the side, it can be in an ad, what have you. And then the actual click-through for that phase 1 was 3,804. And that's not bad. I'm just curious, with them doing that, are they measuring the actual, booking the ticket and getting it in the cart? Because I know, like, for us in the social media marketing world, like, that's the big thing. Yes, we can get them to click on it, but actually getting them to pull the trigger when it comes to making the purchase of the ticket, do they have the metric that actually supports that? And then I have one additional question after, but I'll let you hit that first if you know any more on it.
Yes, as I understand, yes, that is the final sale.
Okay, awesome. Well, that's great then. And then the next question was just, I know that it kind of mentioned navigating the fare situation where right now we have really great one-ways, but I can speak as somebody who tries to do plane travel into Watertown. It's the round trip that really bites you because it's easy to get a ticket out, but coming back in, it seems like it's a bit more expensive. Are they looking at negotiating that a little bit more?
Can you maybe explain what you're talking about with the one-ways versus the round trips?
So in my experience trying to book a flight, it's been cheaper to like fly for me, like anyway, coming into South Dakota. It's usually one way. I can get a good ticket rate, and then I don't get a matching rate like trying to go back out ever. I was just curious because they kind of mentioned it in their presentation that as of right now, their one ways were really strong, and they were kind of looking at the two-way.
I can definitely check on that. I've seen the opposite, actually. I've seen cheaper round trip than I have one-ways. So I can definitely wrap back around and check on that.
Is that specifically looking just with the Denver rotation right now?
Correct.
Okay. Sounds good. I appreciate it. Thank you.
And the average fare that was listed in the proposal that we got from SkyWest, I've had people ask me questions about that. Who keeps track of what the average fare is?
USDOT.
Okay, and so they make
It's a
them
2-year
honor
contract.
that over
After
the
2
two-year
years. Yep.
period. So we'll have times when they run specials and they're less than the average, and then other times when they're more, but it must average out to that, what they projected in there.
Yeah, and the USDOT
Contract.
tracks all that. So.
Yes, okay. That's good to know. I thought that was true, but I want to verify. Are there any other questions or comments? All right, I'll look for action. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Item 12 is approval of resolution number 19-29 expressing intent to enter into a 10-year lease agreement with Rovar LLC to operate a car rental service at the Watertown Regional Airport. We have a motion by Alderman Lallam and a second by Alderman Holing. Todd, want to go ahead and explain this to us, please?
Yeah, this is just the intent to enter into a lease, if I'm correct on that, Matt. The lease will be brought forth in 2 weeks if this is approved tonight.
Correct. This resolution was approved a month ago, and then we were still negotiating some of the details with Rover, and so the public hearing and approval never occurred last meeting as it was intended to, and so now the airport board has approved I believe.
Yes.
And it's been signed by.
It has been signed, correct.
And so now we are good to go. This is the notice, the resolution of intent. At the next meeting, August 5th, the actual lease will be on the agenda, and there'll be a public hearing to take any input on opposition or thoughts on the lease.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Lallam.
So there'll be no discussion on this one. It's just the intent, correct? We're not having a public hearing tonight?
It's the mayor's meeting. She can.
It is a resolution. We're going to vote on that. So,
okay.
Any other Councilman Y?
Todd, this was the only company to submit a bid. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, I will look for action. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Todd. Item 13 is council consideration to authorize the mayor to sign a professional services agreement for engineering services for a stormwater utility fee and structure assessment with Short Elliott Hendrickson, Inc., SEH, and authorizing the city engineer to execute a supplemental letter agreement in the amount of up to $27,890. And this was recommended just previously at the committee meeting.
Madam Mayor, make a motion to approve as presented.
We have a motion by Lallam and a second by Albertson. Heath, would you please give us a summary of what we discussed about this earlier?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Madam Mayor. This proposal for engineering services is being sought by the engineering department to assist us in performing preliminary research and assessments for what would be the potential implementation of a stormwater utility for the city of Watertown. The work that is included in this scope of services is spelled out in the tasks that were in the request for proposals, as well as the tasks that were identified in SEH's proposal. We did receive 3 proposals. They were assessed through our standard proposal evaluation rubric, as we call it, where the proposals are each scored and weighted on factors that included qualifications, project approach, completion date, and compensation amount for the consultant's work. SEH's proposal was rated the highest overall of the 3 that were submitted. And as we've discussed in the Public Works Committee meeting, this proposal of services and the engineering office and the city as a whole, as far as a staffing level is concerned, why this is being brought forward is primarily to help address some of the funding constraints that we're seeing in our capital improvement program. If you recall this year during our bid awards and seeing a lot of those bids come in higher than anticipated this year, we did have to, and I wanted to point this out, we did have to postpone the completion of 2 stormwater projects at the tune of $100,000 each in order to fund street improvement projects that typically take front seat ahead of drainage projects. So with situations like that, it was apparent to me in discussions with the finance office, the city attorney, and the mayor that we needed to start exploring other sources of revenue to help perform some of the capital improvement projects. This is one of those ways to do that, and as I referred to it as one of the lower-hanging fruits in the previous meeting, by all means, it's not a low-hanging fruit to implement a utility. That's not what I meant at all, and I wanted to clarify that in this meeting. But it is a tool that's been utilized by several communities throughout the region and has not yet been implemented by Watertown. And it is a good viable source for revenue to help address stormwater runoff improvements, whether that later be determined to be maintenance and operations costs or new construction costs for things such as culvert replacements, storm sewer inlets and storm sewer pipes, drainage channel maintenance, culvert replacements, curb and gutter repairs, concrete line drainage channels, box culverts, and things of that nature. The consultant SEH is here this evening. Mr. Alec Boyce is here representing them, and he or I would stand by for any questions the council may have.
Thank you. Any questions? Doesn't look like it. All right, we did discuss this at length at the committee meeting, so hopefully people feel comfortable. We'll get more answers after we hire the consultant, and can't answer all the questions now because we haven't done the work yet. But yes, Councilman Vilhauer.
Actually, I do have one question. I'm pretty sure I know the answer that was not specifically mentioned at our committee meeting. This would be collected as part of our monthly utility bill, correct? Would be the anticipated process?
That question would be answered through the study work that the consultant does.
There are other ways.
So there are other options.
Yes, that is one of the viable options that some communities exercise, is to include it as a monthly bill on monthly utility bills that go out through the community. Another option is an annual assessment that goes out with property taxes, for example. But we will vet both those options and maybe any others that I'm not even aware of with the consultant and decide what's best proposed for Watertown.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good question. Councilman Bueller?
I have a question. What are our revenue expectations? What do we need to get to? What are we looking at? That's one question. The other one I have is, would this be something, if we implemented this, that it would continue on with the intention that it would go year to year to year? I guess those are a couple of questions I've got right now.
Thank you, Councilman Bueller. If I understand your first question, so do you mean from a project standpoint, what is the intent that we hope to accomplish?
The revenue, the dollars that that we think we want to generate, the revenue we want to generate from this, what do we have a figure of where we'd like to be? What kind of dollars we're looking at? And are we doing this partly for a contingency on loss in sales tax revenue? Is that part of the reason we're doing this?
Yeah, you know, as far as the estimated amount, I don't personally have a targeted amount that I'm hoping to accomplish. I am interested and will look forward to seeing what the consultant's information provides to us for projected revenues. But I would estimate from a community our size that could vary from anywhere from $500,000 to $2 million, depending on how this utility is established and set up and assessed.
Madam Mayor, if I could answer the gentleman's question. That's going to be part of the process that we're going to undertake, is we're going to sit down with Finance, Public Works, try to arrive at a figure, take a look at where revenues have been used from other sources before for stormwater repairs and operation and maintenance, and get that targeted figure. From that, we work that problem backwards based upon number of parcels and then obviously an assessment figure per parcel. Answer your question?
Thank you, Alan. Thank you.
Bet.
Quite a few communities in South Dakota and all over the country use a stormwater utility to offset their expenses. We have very few sources of revenue to fund our operation, and this is one that we're not using right now. And with the primary emphasis placed on sales tax revenue, that's the main source of revenue for these operations. If that were to fall off, we would be in a pickle. So, you know, I envision this being something very small to start, and if the need arose later, if we just, you know, something changed, we'd at least have the tool in the toolbox like other communities have.
And as we mentioned earlier in our diagnosis and visiting with the city staff and the mayor, the emphasis was on low cost, low maintenance on administration. We can take it as far as you want, but the idea here is to start to get a dedicated piece for stormwater so that we could be proactive in our work.
Thank you.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, if I could follow up on the second part of Councilman Bueller's question. In relation to the, if I can remember what it was now.
The amount? Oh, permanence, yeah.
Yes, that permanency. I would anticipate this would be rolled over from year to year. And I don't know if Mac can speak to that. Once a utility is established, I'm sure the council has the authority to repeal that establishment at maybe any particular time, or.
Yeah, it would function similar to an ordinance. It would be an ordinance. It could be repealed if the community decided we no longer wanted to obtain that revenue.
Good questions. Any others? All right, I'll look for action. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item number 14 is approval of the development agreement with Watertown Development Company and the Lofts LLC for downtown mixed-use development.
I'll move the adoption of the agreement.
We have a motion by Councilman Vilhauer and a second, I think I heard Manti first. Yeah. And I believe that we're getting the agreement hot off the press, being passed out. And do we have an electronic version on for the screen? Matt, do you know? I don't know if that will make sense or not, but we can describe what's in it. And I think I'm first going to ask our city attorney, Matt Roby, to lead this off.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So as you'll recall, on June 17th, the council approved a memorandum of understanding with the Lofts LLC to pursue a downtown mixed-use commercial residential development. And what you have in front of you is the formalized version of that MOU. Essentially, to boil it down, this is a three-way agreement between the city, the Watertown Development Company, and the Lofts LLC. If you look at page, Exhibit C, the very back, it gives a good snapshot of the funding and where it comes and where it goes. So essentially, in the first year, once the city is going to be pursuing a tax increment financing district for this property. Once that process is complete, the city would make a payment to the developer in the amount of $1.8 million. In addition, in the first year, the city would also make a payment to the Watertown Development Company in the amount of $225,000 to be held in escrow to make reimbursements to the developer for property tax payments in the years 2026 through the year 2030. The Watertown Development Company is participating in the arrangement in the amount of $20,000 per year. The first 5 years are making a $20,000 contribution to the city to offset our costs. In the second 5 years, they're contributing to the repayment of the property taxes of the developer. And then, as you'll see, the developer is going to be applying for the 5-year discretionary tax relief period through the county for the first 5 years. And then thereafter, for the next 15 years of the TIF, it would provide $61,000 roughly, that's an estimated figure, back to the city in the form of a repayment on that loan. And then finally, at the end of those 20 years, there would be a repayment by the developer of the balance of the loaned amount, as well as a repayment from the city to the Watertown Development Company of the funds that they contributed. So if you're not confused, then I probably didn't accurately describe the transaction. So if you have any questions, the developer and Chris from the Watertown Development Company are here to answer any questions.
Thank you. Councilman Vilhauer?
My only question, I didn't get a chance to see this till late this afternoon, so I haven't had a chance to cross-match this with the memorandum of understanding that we adopted here a few weeks ago. Is this essentially, are the numbers still what we had looked at with the MOU, or has anything changed significantly?
Yeah, the main item that's changed is that the plan for the developer to apply for the discretionary tax relief, that wasn't part of the original plan, and so because the developer will be pursuing that and that tax relief for the first 5 years of the project, it did alter the figures slightly. It altered the amount that the TIF would pay back the city, as well as altered the amount that the developer would ultimately owe the city in the shortfall. But it came out essentially, it came out to I think it was $20,000 difference from the original calculation.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Councilman Vilhauer?
If we were to approve this, what's projected startup? I know I asked the same question last time round that you were here. What's your projected startup on this?
Tentatively Thursday.
Oh.
Yeah, we've been working on this for most of last week and this weekend, and now today up until this afternoon. So it would just be kind of getting everything ready to go.
And I'm assuming we will see an actual TIF agreement come before us at some point, not too far down the road. Is that
correct? Tracy from our office is working on the TIF, so once we get that far, it'll come for an actual TIF agreement, which is stated in the agreement itself that the TIF will be coming at a later point.
For the record, Jesse, would you state your name? And
Jesse Craig.
And Chris?
Chris Shilkin.
Thank you. In case anybody's watching later,
Sure.
Who the heck are they? Other questions?
Man, one thing I failed to point out, I mean, not only is the community getting the benefit of economic development downtown, but we are, as part of this agreement, we are getting public parking that will result once the project is completed. There'll be surface public parking, and I can't tell you exactly off the top of my head how many spaces it is.
38.
38 spaces. So there'll be additional parking for downtown.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? All right. Oh, were you going to ask? Just getting ready to vote. Move very slowly. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very
Good luck to you.
exciting.
Thank
Good
you.
luck, yes. All right, item number 15 is authorization for the engineering department to fill the engineer 1 position at a salary of $60,000. We have a motion by Councilman Lallam and a second by Councilman Y. Heath, would you please tell us about this happy little piece of information?
With a big smile on my face, I will, Madam Mayor. No, we're proud to, happy to announce that we've made a verbal offer, and there's been a verbal acceptance of that offer to fill the engineer 1 position in the engineering department. If you recall, this position went vacant over a year ago when our engineer 1 retired, and has been open since January, so roughly 7 months now. We've been seeking out a replacement for this position, and have found a good viable candidate that we're excited to bring on board, and wanted to formalize this action mainly due to the salary amount and how the salary resolution is written at each year for this amount needs to be approved by council.
Excellent. Any questions or comments? Councilman Lallam?
Heath, any idea when their starting date would be if everything's signed and approved?
Yes, as soon as 2 weeks from today.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome.
That's good news.
Anything else? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. And item 16, authorization for the engineering department to hire a part-time engineer and provide a supplemental appropriation of $23,000 at a future council meeting. We have a motion by Councilman Y and a second by Councilwoman Manty. Heath.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This action on the heels of the last helps, well, I guess I'll step back here briefly and just take a minute to give a sincere thank you to the engineering staff. We went through in detail our project load here, our last staff meeting Thursday of last week, and the engineering staff are currently running approximately 30 projects, and those projects are all different variations of stages from design to construction to closeout. Right now we're carrying that load with 1 assistant city engineer and 1 engineering technician and our summer intern. And they have done an excellent job at keeping things afloat and doing the best they can with the time that they have available to spend on those 30 projects. So I just wanted to take a minute to thank the engineering staff for bridging this gap here while we've been seeking staffing assistance and filling the engineer 1 position. And with that being said, this opportunity has presented itself through discussions with a former civil engineer that's in retirement status, and he was willing to come on board with us and work on a part-time basis up to 29 hours a week for up to the next 6 months. You know, we may not need him for that full duration, but that's what this amount reflects. The primary basis behind this immediate need is to carry out, get us through the rest of this construction season. As I mentioned, with the limited staff that we have, carrying that workload in the field inspections that are going on right now on a lot of these projects, we're just not able to cover all of our bases, and we're kind of starting to run staff into the ground, so to speak, in a way that's just not healthy and productive or sustainable. So this would help fill that gap, get us through this construction season, and also help provide some training for the previous position that was just approved. So with all that being said, I'd love to help answer any questions the council might have.
Thank you, Heath. Any questions from the staff? Councilman Lallam?
Same question. When are they looking to start?
As soon as tomorrow.
All right. That's even better news.
Other questions or comments? All right, I'll look for action. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Awesome. All right. Item number 17 is old business. And I do have a piece of old business that I would like to bring up. The public perception is that the city is dumping the Boys and Girls Club, saying no to their request for support. And that's just simply not true. The city supports the Boys and Girls Club very generously. In fact, the city of Watertown supports the Watertown Boys and Girls Club at a far greater level than any other city in South Dakota. And also, the city supports the Boys and Girls Club to a greater extent than we support any other external agency. And so I just want to clear that up a little bit. The issue is that the city cannot guarantee future appropriations. The law tells us this. And furthermore, guaranteed funds to the Boys and Girls Club organization could force cuts to essential city services. So it's not at all that we're contrary to the Boys and Girls Club. We support the Boys and Girls Club, and we feel that's a very important organization. And we're not going to have any discussion tonight, but we would like to foster more constructive communication based upon facts. And so the council and I have prepared a position statement that we will be handing out to the press, and I'm thinking we'll do a news release. It's just the facts, and so that if anyone is confused or interested in it, we're happy to explain it. And I just want to be clear about that. And then ask if there's any other old business. Councilman Roby.
Last council meeting, we had quite a bit of discussion on Cherry Creek Drive. And as I stated then, I'm not sure what the resolution of Cherry Creek Drive is, but I do want to drive that towards a resolution because it's been hanging out there so long. So Heath, if you wouldn't mind, can I fire one your way? Is there an update on that project?
Absolutely, Councilman Roby. We met just today with a consultant for the development that was previously approved as far as the plat goes north of this area. And if you recall, there's going to be some off-site grading of that development and their improvements to sustain their residential construction. What we're hoping to do is coordinate the regrading of this channel with the developer's grading efforts. And in order to do so, the meeting we had today was with the developer's engineer and looking at their plans for the grading for that development and how we could coordinate our regrading into their plans. Now, in that discussion, we had a couple of bullet points we wanted to touch on initially here to see what was viable for a solution in that drainage way. The biggest concern that the city has at this point on how to alleviate some of the standing water is the wetland delineation that is on record for that area. Given the Corps of Engineer regulations regarding wetlands, we have to be very careful with what we do through there so that we're not obligated to have to mitigate any wetland losses. I feel that would be a taxing issue for the city to take on if we were to get into wetland mitigation over these over this drainage channel correction efforts. So that's something that myself and the consultant are going to explore through conversation with the Corps to see exactly what options they would allow to be performed through this area. That being said, we also have some existing infrastructure in place that we need to take a couple of survey shots on. We have done a good amount of survey out there with our city staff to see how the channel is graded currently and how much grade we have to obtain when we regrade the channel to get rid of the standing water and create some more positive flow and drainage out of there. But we do have a couple more shots we need to take, so that was another action item that we took out of that meeting, is to finish up some of that survey work and see what other modifications we could explore. Those were the two larger action items that we took out of that meeting. I hope to continue those discussions throughout this week and into next with the developer's engineer and our city staff and come up with an amicable solution within the constraints we have to work with. I really want to stress that with that wetland delineation, with the flat grade that's out there, what we are going to do is, I mean, obviously we have constraints we have to work within, and we're going to do our best to accommodate a better drainage situation than what's there now.
Thank you. Does that answer your question? Other old business, Councilman Albertson?
ice arena, what's happening with that?
Well, the ice arena, I guess what I can say about that is we're still talking to the mall folks. I thought we would have had an agreement by now, but we can't go on forever talking ad nauseum about a deal. We've got to either, go forward with the mall location or not. And so I don't have anything new to report about that other than we are still going back and forth. We haven't closed that book yet, but we're getting pretty close to. Any other old business? Any liaison reports? Councilman Bueller.
Thank you, Mayor. Excuse me. One thing that came to light, this happened a couple of weeks ago. There were some concerns about Cattail Crossing and the condition of the greens at Cattail Crossing and the compaction issues that we may have there. There was a lot of discussion about this, and I think the decision was made to try to, if weather permitting, to try to, they call it knife cutting. It's not real intrusive. It's not going to, I don't think it would cause any issues for play at the time that they would use that procedure. But I know we've had a lot of rain, and I'm not sure where that sits right now, but I do believe that the intention is to try to do everything we can to improve the greens and to reduce that, or make them a little bit softer than what they are right now. And so that was a discussion we had at the board, and I think everybody's on board to move forward with trying to remedy that situation.
Thank you. And that's similar to the deep tine aeration that we do intend as well to do, but this isn't the appropriate time.
Right. That's I think that is typically done in the fall of the year.
So we are expecting to do that later.
I do believe so.
Yes, I think so too. Thank you for bringing that up. Other liaison reports? Councilwoman Manti?
Okay, I'm going to make sure Matt helps me make sure I have my dates correct. The Animal Control Board has basically spent about a year looking at some of the flaws in our animal control ordinances. And this came out of the concern for public safety, for clarification, for ease of clarity and ease of the animal control officers to be able to do their job, or police officers. One of the things that has been quite frustrating for a long time is the inability of any of us to remove a very dangerous dog from the situation immediately. It's always been a process that has involved the courts. And we have repeat offender dogs and things like that. I mean, I think that's when it was brought to our attention that we got a problem. And so rather than just kind of cherry pick through our ordinance, we decided to take a look at our whole dangerous and vicious dog ordinances. And what we are ready to do, we believe, is to provide a brief presentation to the Public Works and Safety Committee on the 5th of August. That would give the council a chance to look over the changes. Oh, one more thing too. We've never had a dog on dog or animal on animal ordinance. So we've never had any way to protect people's dogs from other dogs that may be running at large, and we did include that in there. So that would be August 5th. Hopefully there would be a first reading on August 19th, and then a ratification on September 1st is what our proposed timeline is. Is that what you have too, Matt?
I believe it's September
3rd. 3rd, yes, I had that wrong. September 3rd. I get messed up with that. So we'll be bringing that forward. We'll give you plenty of time from the time that we do our presentation till the time that there's final action. But I believe that you'll see it reflects the careful work we did. It really was at least a year that we took to provide the city with a safer environment for both our dogs and our citizens, and we feel pretty good about it.
Great, thank you. Other liaison reports? Councilman Vilhar? Oh, okay. I skipped new business. Oh, sorry. I'll go back to that, but as long as we're on liaison member reports, are there any others? Okay, new business. Councilman Vilhar.
If I'm mistaken, I think I see Rob Bain as street department superintendent sitting in the back there. I was told that he is one of our mosquito people in town. I posed this question to the mayor and to city engineer this morning. Every year about this time, I see or get comments from people, and I saw one on Facebook this morning. And I saw, I think all of us as council members that were on the council a year ago, got an email from an individual who lives in a different community that does not spray, talking about that their concern is that our mosquito spraying program worsens the problem. And I would like someone to address that works with it, that knows more about than I do. I'm a strong supporter, proponent of it, but I guess I would like to hear from someone who is a little bit closer to the ground on this than I am.
Yeah, actually Mike Berger, his department actually runs the program, but we do assist, street assist, park and rec assist. You know, and I can't speak about the chemical itself that's used, but I know as far as the spraying in the air, if it hits the mosquitoes that are in the air, it will kill them. And they also do larvicide too. Park and Rec does larvicide, and so does wastewater. But you know, we sprayed for the Redland event 2 days in a row, and you know, the reports I've heard from people is that the mosquitoes were pretty much non-existent out there. You know, and I really can't tell you more about that, but I think the chemical's proven.
If I'm not mistaken, this is not a program that we design ourselves. I mean, these dollars are coming from a state fund, correct, for the most part, that fund this?
Yeah, and Kristen, you could probably speak more.
I mean, so this is a program that somebody higher up the chain has put in place that we're following. So I would guess this has been looked at by someone other than just our local city staff as well.
Yeah, I don't know the history of it. I know this started back in '03. The spraying for mosquitoes did. And I do believe we keep track of separate our staff spraying the time that they spray.
Yeah.
It's paid out of a different fund, I believe.
It's kind of switched back and forth. It is going actually back into the general fund, and the Park and Rec department is going to be the one that's kind of facilitating it. It was under the sewer department for a while. In regards to, we do get a grant each year. I think this year it's around $8,500. As far as coverage of the total expenses, no, it does not cover between the chemical that's used and the staffing. But yeah, I think.
But my point though is that we're following directions
from the state Department of Health.
Correct. That's my point.
I would like to add to that. I mean, the reason that we spray primarily, and the reason that the health department supports it, is to control the West Nile virus because it's carried by mosquitoes. And yes, the spraying kills beneficial insects as well as mosquitoes, and that's damage that we don't like, but it's all done because we want to control the West Nile virus. So the mosquitoes who are hiding under a leaf or a blade of grass survive the spraying. And we do put larvicide in bodies of water, but we don't put larvicide in your wheelbarrow or in your ice cream bucket that you left out in your yard. And any little tiny pool of water can breed mosquitoes. So we aren't going to eradicate mosquitoes. It does harm, like it kills dragonflies, and I'm sure that's what you're seeing. Dragonflies are a predator of mosquitoes, so they eat mosquitoes. And when we spray, it doesn't just kill mosquitoes, it kills dragonflies. And the next day, the mosquitoes are back, and the dragonflies take much longer to recover. So in that sense, yes, it's not the best thing, but we do it because the West Nile virus is a threat to public health. Councilman Albertson?
You've hit on one of the items that I've heard a lot, and that's the fact that it does kill bees also.
Yeah, we need to be very careful about how we do it. When we have large gatherings of people, like we did at our fireworks celebration for Independence Day at the Redland Center, we don't want people getting and spreading and, West Nile. That's the type of event where that becomes a serious health threat for our community. So even though there are negative side effects, there are times when we should do it. And we only spray when we have identified those species of mosquito which carry the virus. We don't just spray randomly. We don't have a routine schedule. We're checking for the few, there's 2 species that we're checking for, and I don't know how many species of mosquitoes there are, but more than that. So it isn't just any mosquito. It's the West Nile virus carrying mosquitoes that we're spraying to kill. And yes, it kills all the mosquitoes. It doesn't just kill those mean ones that carry the virus. It kills nice insects as well. So that's too bad, but it is for a good purpose.
Thank you for the information.
You're welcome. Councilwoman Manti?
I don't know how the Notify Me system works for text and things when there is mosquito spraying, but we just had a recent situation with mosquito spraying where kids were still playing outside and in the yard and they were spraying. So, and mine didn't go off either, my Notify Me. And I just think that can be fixed, but I wanted to make you aware of that. I don't know if that's who that is, if that's a Spencer thing,
Talk with wastewater about that.
Yeah, whatever it is, so that, just to be double sure, so that, we can bring the kids and pets in for an hour and keep them off the grass and things like that. So just appreciate that.
Right, and the timing when they spray is designed specifically to hit that period of time when mosquitoes are most likely to be in the air and not hiding under the blades of grass.
Right, and so, anyway, that was, like I said, mine didn't go off either, so.
Councilman Lallam?
Different new business, non-mosquito related. This weekend is state USA slow pitch softball. There will be 85 teams in Watertown from U10 to U18. So if you run a restaurant or any type of that, be expecting there to be a lot of kids that are really hungry.
Excellent.
Kids eat a lot.
Have them come out to Cooking on Kampeska.
That would be
when they're done with
the other
their
one.
games.
We have Cooking on Kampeska. So it starts 8 o'clock on Saturday morning, and then it's on Saturday
It's on
and Sunday.
Friday night.
Yep.
And Saturday and
Cooking on
on
Kampeska,
Kampeska.
yes.
And then we also have Thursday Night Live. The plan is to be out at the park where Cooking on Kampeska will be. And then, so there's a lot going on.
So I would make sure that our hotels and stuff are aware, because there will be teams that come from Sioux Falls and farther away that are probably going to be staying. And if there's something they're asking what's going on, Cooking on Quebec will be a great time for them to go out and enjoy some music.
I think it's neat that they'll be here.
Wonderful.
There'll be a lot
Thank
of
you.
people.
Yes. Any other new business? You have, okay. Colin was going to give us an update on the projects, so I cut him off at the last meeting. I'm glad you jumped up because I had kind of forgotten. Assistant City Engineer Colin Paulson.
Rob is also going to help me
Okay.
because he's also been out there a lot and also with the mill and overlay. We have been getting a lot of calls. Mondays are the worst for calls just because over the weekend people notice.
Help is on the way, Colin.
Good. But I kind of want to start asking the council if there's any specific ones you want updates on over any other one. Otherwise, I'll just kind of give a general update.
Colin, are you talking about roads, pothole repair, or what are we?
Anything
everything?
Everything you want right now.
Okay. Typically, what I've seen is we're getting comments about potholes and stuff like that. Certain ones that are worse than other, and I pass those on to either Rob or something. And I know that I tell people that we do have on the city's website, they can go in there and send those as well. But I know there's ones that are bad that seems like they pop overnight, but they're not. They're not. I think they just get bigger overnight sometimes. So,
Councilman Roby.
Thanks for the opportunity. We had exchanged a couple emails. Was it 17th Street? Do you got an update on that one?
Yes. Do you want to hit on potholes or?
Go ahead.
Okay. My personal thing on potholes is Rob's crew is just as busy as the engineering department. They're constantly running. He has 2 crews constantly doing potholes. We've hired Dunnick to do potholes. It's just something that's always going to be there. And yes, this year is probably worse than other years just because of the weather we've had. 17th Street, I know, is it's kind of hitting hard, and we had our fair share of calls just this morning about that. And they're working hard. This week they're installing the edge drain or drain tile along the edge, and they're going to try to finish the base work this week, and concrete and paving should happen next week. That is weather dependent, and I mean there's other factors that weigh in as well, but they're trying their best, and they are 3 weeks behind because of weather. We have not really had any real project related delays, and I'm going to knock on wood because I will say we've been pretty lucky that way this year, but weather has not cooperated. As you all know, that's nothing new. So 17th, and that goes for Northridge too. They've lumped those two together just because it's all part of the same contract. So, and I was trying to give people that were calling updates to the same exact update that we are expecting pavement to hit the ground next week in Northridge and 17th Street.
Would have been this week had we not had inclement weather.
Correct, and actually, their target for both Genstead, which is now complete, and then Northridge was July 4th. But because of weather and base issues and stuff like that, because of the rain, they have been delayed that long.
If I could take a minute in relation to 17th, and I know that these neighborhood projects are frequently the calls we get because, and I just wanted to quickly explain the contractor's method here and why it's done the way it is. But we've got a few neighborhood projects that are fairly small in scope in the whole scheme of things for contracting work. And so when we do that, in these particular 3 neighborhoods this year, all those projects went to one contractor. Now, there's some factors that go into how they progress through each one of those neighborhoods, but the first initial process is bringing in the mill machine that they typically will subcontract out and bring that subcontractor in one fell swoop, and they will go and hit all those areas and open all those roads up all at the same time. Now, that's a double-edged sword, obviously. There's economy of scale that we receive benefit of that, so we don't have to pay remobilization for that milling machine to come in 3 or 4 multiple times. So it is a cost savings to the city, and where we in the engineering department feel it's enough of a cost saving to justify allowing them to progress that way. Now, insert the weather factor, and that's where the time lapse to get these roads reworked, edge drain installed, buttoned back up with pavement over top. That's obviously the next big steps that have to occur, and we do get these storms intermittently during this, and that's what's pushed us back. So 17th in particular was the last stretch of neighborhood to get back to, and of course has been pushed back a couple times since then. But I thought I'd give a brief synopsis of that method and why that progresses in the way that it does.
Thank you. Councilman Lallam?
Heath, could we put something out, like just a news release on where they're going to be working this coming week? I know it's obviously going to change depending on the weather, but I think people typically just want to know where it's at. Kind of like, I know KXLG does the 212 project every week, and I listen to it. I mean, it's not terribly exciting, but it's at least you have an update of what's going on. I think that would be something that we could put out through street department or something along those lines, that hey, this week is when we're supposed to be working on this project, and kind of give just an overview like we do with our GIS site, depending on weather, obviously. But I think that would, at least you could say, this is what we're doing this week. I know it wouldn't take a ton of time, but just let's put it out there. This is what we're on, and be aware of what's happening, what's closing, and things like that.
We used to have project updates on the engineering webs page. We're not doing that anymore?
We have not yet, Madam Mayor, but that is something that's been on my list of wants to get done and to see accomplished. Give a brief summary of each project, where it's at in its progression, and the timeline.
It'll be same thing with our road closure on, next to the gas and, you know, for the Burritos on Broadway building. I mean, that would be something where people don't have to be like, what is going on here? I mean, they could just say, well, here's the construction
And
plan that we got.
Yeah, and I want to point out too, we're really kind of trying to hit it hard this year with our contractors that public involvement and engagement is very important, and we're trying to improve that as we go. There has been some change in some of our main contractors, so we're trying to push that. We're trying to be better too, being so short-staffed, and I hate using that excuse over and over and over, but it is hard to get back to some phone calls and some emails right away, and that does frustrate people. But we do try to get back to everyone that does call or email us, and we're trying our best to do that, and we're trying to get the contractor to do the same.
Thank you. Yes, Councilman Helene.
I apologize, this might not be technically new business, but I know how this works. You're likely to get a comment about why something hasn't been done, and you're likely not going to get a thank you afterwards. So on behalf of all of the council, I want to say thank you to all of the crews out there working in this heat, in this weather. We do appreciate it. Not a lot of people are going to say it. So ahead of time for the summer, for everyone, thank you.
That's nice. Yeah, thank you. Councilman Bueller.
Thank you. I don't know why she looks at me. Anyway, Rob, and I know this is looking forward a little bit. You know, there were some issues, concerns, and this doesn't have to do with street stuff right now, but looking forward to the wintertime, what we're going to do with the contractors that we work with. Are we kind of planning? Do we know what the intentions are of those folks that do snow removal for us?
Yeah, I do have a contractor that confronted me probably about a week ago, and he's a contractor that actually does some parking lot plowing for like Shopko, and I'm not sure if he does Target or not, but he's going to have more time available to help us next winter. So we'll be able to probably give him a lot more work. So before snow flies, of course, I need to get all my ducks in a row before this winter. But that part does look good. One of the other contractors I was a little concerned about losing this last year. I need to talk with them and see if they're still on board. And we'll make adjustments as we need to before we get to wintertime. So I did want to fill you guys in too about our mill and overlay project. This year it was just one phase. We had a little bit less work than we normally have had. But as they rolled through all of it, we had 5 different locations that they worked in. They rolled through all of it, but they have one spot, or actually one block left on 2nd Street East between 4th and 5th Avenue South. It's next to Roosevelt School. They have that left to do, and I believe they're going to Colin, do you know if it's the same contractor that's doing all these other projects in town, but they will be working on that. I don't know if it'll be this week yet or next week, but they did get 1st Avenue done, 14th Avenue done, 3rd Avenue done, 1st Avenue South between Compasca Boulevard and Highway 20 is done, and Marina Bay is done. So it's all complete. It's kind of up to us to get all the striping and stuff completed.
Oh, you just striping downtown. Some of the stripes that are going the way they were when,
showing up on Kemp.
Yeah, I just was sitting at the coffee shop and watched a guy go like that and park the wrong way, into those.
I don't want that to happen, but
yeah, some of them are considerably showing,
We do have. Are you talking about Kemp directly?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Actually, tomorrow, Heath and Colin will be meeting. I'll be gone, but they will be meeting with Bituminous Paving, who did our work on that last year, and there will be warranty work on Kemp Avenue and part of 2nd. 2nd Street south of Roosevelt, I don't know if you guys have been down in that area, but we did. The contractor came in and did a fog seal over the top of that. Quite a bit of the aggregate had stayed in place. That's to seal what's left in place so we don't lose all that too. Everything north of 4th Avenue up to 1st Avenue north, I should say that over, north of 4th Avenue south up to 1st Avenue north. They will be redoing that chip seal as well as Kemp Avenue from 81 to 3rd Street west. And then we'll restripe it at that time.
Okay, good. And in that same neighborhood, there's like what I call sinkholes on like 5th, you know, where you guys are going down now by Roosevelt, and if you turned left on 5th or you know, east on 5th, there's one that just keeps growing. I know you guys came in and helped a lot temporarily, you know, with what you could do, but it seems like because I got a phone call, I recognized the number, and I said, please tell me that the front of your house didn't drop into a sinkhole, because I know it's getting like that. And those are the ones that are hardest to fix. I know they are, but it would swallow a car right now.
I think, is that the one that you and I talked about earlier this spring? Mm-hmm. Yeah, and my staff did go out and dig that out and put temporary millings in, but it's one we have to get back to patch.
Yeah, because it's all shipped up now.
Right.
Like I said, I drove over to make sure none of the houses were going to sink into it. I'm just kidding, but it is a big one. And then back to Kemp, is it possible to put some flashers again on some of the stop signs?
Is there some of them not working?
No, there's people blowing right through them, particularly on the corner of 2nd and Kemp, you know, right where we are here.
Right.
Gather. Yeah, that corner. I think almost every weekend I see at least a couple people go through those.
Okay.
So it wouldn't hurt just to put the flashers on again a little bit, if we have such a thing. Or put the one in the center that we had for a while there.
Yeah, and we the ones we currently have are they're actually flashers that come on at night. They don't run during the daytime. Okay. We need to actually, if we're going to get something like that, we need to purchase something different than we have.
Okay.
And we might be able to get something that flashes throughout the day. I know.
I was just hoping we had something temporary that we didn't have to buy anything new or
we actually do have 2 LED solar powered stop signs in stock at our street department. Exactly like the ones we have up on Maple and 14th. Mm-hmm. Those particular stop signs are $1,600 a piece. So.
Yeah, I was hoping it was a.
But we can put those up. I mean, maybe even if we would potentially, maybe after a month or two, switch them out and move them down the road just to get people's attention.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Is that just a reminder?
Move them around from site to site.
Yep. And that just along that road, and it just seems like that particular intersection, you know, it doesn't happen so much up by Broadway, Maple, whatever. They're used to stopping at those 4-way. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So it's only the places where we've added 4-way stops that had never been before, I think, is where the biggest problem is.
Right.
All right. Any other new business? That's a lot of new business. Thank you for the update.
It's okay.
Okay. I don't believe we have a reason to go into executive session. And so item number 21 is motion to adjourn. Have a motion by Councilman Lallam and a second by Councilman Rademski. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries.